Next up on our agenda is a update on our unofficial fall enrollment in our pre-K4 program. Dr. Thornton, are you presenting from here or are you presenting at the podium?
I'm going to present from here, Mr. Chairman. As you know, each fall, Norfolk Public Schools, along with other school divisions throughout the Commonwealth, are required to submit to the Department of Education the fall membership or fall enrollment report as of September 30, 2000, for this year, September 30, 2015. This evening, we are here to provide the board a very brief overview of our fall enrollment, particularly as it relates to the change in enrollment from the prior year to this year, to show that one-year change. Also, to share with the board how the actual fall membership enrollment compares to the budgeted membership enrollment. The enrollment is critical for a number of reasons, one of which is that fall enrollment is utilized to estimate what our average daily membership, or in the spring, the number of kids that we expect to serve throughout the year, and that becomes a basis for estimating state funding. As well, a second major usage of the fall membership projection is to determine staffing and class size projections for the year. So for this evening, I would just share with the board very quickly, this first slide just kind of gives a definition, if you will, of fall enrollment, which is the count as of September 30 compared to average daily membership, and then enrollment projections. This next slide here really summarizes what we want to share with the board this evening. And of course, if the board desires, we can always share more information at a subsequent work session, particularly as we go forward in budget planning for next year. But you can see on this slide here in the third column from the left, the total district-wide enrollment, those first three, elementary, middle, and high, totals 29,845, compared to where we were last year in our fall enrollment of 29,933. That represents a slight decline of 88 students, but what's important here is that what it really says to us is when you compare our rate of annual decline over the last 4 years, this is a significant slowing of that rate of decline. If you go back 3 years ago, we lost approximately 350 kids from one year to the subsequent year. So this has, what you see here is the result of a 3-year trend where the rate of decline is actually slowing down for the school division. And that's a positive in the sense that we're not losing as many kids from one year to the next as we had been previously. It's not unusual for an urban setting like ours to experience enrollment decline, particularly as your residential development potential shrinks, if you will, from one year to the next as the community begins to age out, and your school-age students, as well as families with school-age kids, begin to slow down. So the good news here for us is that we're not losing kids at the rate that we have been in recent years. And you can see when you compare what we projected our enrollment would be for this year, the total is 29, we projected 29,703. And we actually, again, we're reporting actual enrollment of 29,845. So what we're reporting compared to what we're projected is actually a positive. So we have 142 more kids than we were projecting. And you say, well, some may ask, well, how accurate is the projection? From one year to the next, our cohort survival method that we utilize here and some other variables out of Dr. Bailey's office, accountability research and assessment, the accuracy of those projections are about 99.5%. So we feel pretty good that when we look at the projections and we look at the actual, that we have more kids than we were projected to have. So that should translate into additional state funding compared to what we had planned for. And then again, this is just a recent trend, and you can see again, total district going back to 2011 was 33,273. The subsequent year, 12-13, was 32,685, 32,424, 32,107, and this year, 32,017. Again, the 5-year rate of decline cumulative is just under 4%, but when you compare this past year, it's right at it's less than 0.5%. So again, that's a positive trend in that we're not declining at the rate that we had seen in previous years. Ask me to answer any questions for the board. There's more slides, but that's the essence of the report.
Questions? Comments? Okay. All right. We also have another presentation here on the pre-K program. I just wanted to mention to the board and thank the board both for allowing this upcoming presentation on the pre-K program as well as a subsequent presentation on our federal funding. Normally, we would address these in our work sessions, but because we spent so much effort on our data analysis the past 2 work sessions, you all asked that we move this up to the business portion of the meeting. So I want to thank you for allowing that and for indulging us, and for Dr. Thornton allowing us to do that in this setting. So with that said, Dr. Thornton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, we have with us this evening Ms. Jamie Fissner, who is our Senior Coordinator for federal programs, under which the preschool early learning programs are under her supervision. And Ms. Fissner joined Norfolk Public Schools in April of 2015. We were excited to have her with her background and her expertise in federal programs, as well as taking on early learning here in the division. So she is here this evening to provide the board with a brief overview on where we are with our pre-K programs. Of course, you all know that we operate 3 programs, if you will: a 3-year-old program, which is funded primarily through Title I funding. We serve approximately 378 kids. That number has pretty much been steady over the last several years. We also operate a state-funded Virginia Preschool Initiative program. That program has been in effect for several years, not only in Norfolk, but in other school divisions that choose to take advantage of it. It's not a required program, but it's one in which localities may choose to participate in if they have the students and the, if you will, the market for it. As well, it requires a local match, a pretty significant local match. And then third, which is new for this year, we have the Virginia Preschool Initiative expansion program, which is primarily federally funded. And the goals and objectives of that program were to enhance through some research-based processes and procedures and strategies to enhance the state-funded VPI. So we have 3 programs: 3-year-old preschool funded by Title I, the VPI state, which we support approximately just under 1,700 kids, and then VPI Plus, which is a federal grant first for this year. Right now we are serving about 50 students. So Ms. Fissner is going to share with the board where we are in that process. I can tell you that we have been, over the last several weeks, very aggressive in trying to fill up those VPI Plus classes, because when we started this grant program last fall, when we signed the MOU to participate in this program, and was one that was also endorsed by several of our community partners, and we're appreciative for that, there was an expectation that we had a significant number of 4-year-olds on the waiting list, if you will. The board has discussed that waiting list on several occasions over the last 3 years, at least since I've been here. And we have reported in any given year to the state, most recently last year, that we had approximately 239 kids on the waiting list that had not been served under the VPI state-funded program. However, at this point in time, we've been challenged to really, if you will, validate the details of that waiting list. So as we signed on for VPI Plus, with the expectation that there was at least 200 or so kids waiting to come in addition to what the state was serving, we've been challenged to recruit those kids. We're making progress. We've been working with the state diligently. We started working with our partners at United Way over the last several weeks to really get the word out and do some aggressive recruiting to try to get those kids in because, and I'm running on a little bit, but the federal VPI, on the basis of that reported waiting list, we received an award to establish 11 additional VPI classes to serve approximately 198 kids. And Ms. Fissner will tell you the number of kids we're serving as of today. But the point is that we are at our pre-K enrollment levels are very similar to where we were last year. Our challenge has been trying to identify and bring in the kids and the families that meet the criteria to deal with what we believed last year, over the last several years, was a waiting list. So with that being said, Ms. Fissner.
Well, thank you, Dr. Thornton. Good evening to Chairman Thornton, school board members, cabinet members, and community members. As Dr. Thornton said, I am Jamie Fissner. I'm the Title I coordinator and the early learning coordinator in our office downstairs. And you might see from my slide that Dr. Thornton has seen this PowerPoint because he summarized it very well, but I will go through some additional information. So just to give a historical context to pre-K in Norfolk Public Schools, we have had preschool in this division for over 20 years. Before 1995, it was really more of a locally funded preschool program, probably very small in nature. I wasn't here, but this is just going with the data that I have. In 1995 was when the Commonwealth of Virginia and the General Assembly undertook the Virginia Preschool Initiative across the Commonwealth. And this was aimed at reaching those 4-year-olds that are high in poverty or have other risk factors, where a 4-year-old program really could help them become kindergarten ready when they began the kindergarten program. So Norfolk has been participating in that ever since. But that's not our only program that we have. As Dr. Thornton said, we do have 3 preschool programs that we operate, and many people lump them together, but I think it's important to really distinguish them because they do have different funding streams and therefore different rules and eligibility requirements. So our first one is our Title I preschool. Most people call this pre-K 3. We're trying to change that vernacular a bit so that people, again, remember the funding streams involved. So our pre-K, our Title I preschool, it is funded through our Title I division set aside. And this provides the salaries and benefits for teachers and paras, field trips for the students, curriculum and assessment that the teachers need in the classroom, professional development, and instructional supplies. Currently, we have 21 classes in 13 of our Title I schools and Berkeley Campus Stella Early Childhood Center. To qualify for Title I preschool is very simple. You just simply need to live in a Title I school zone. So it's a very popular program, limited space, and it fills up rather quickly. Compare that to our Virginia Preschool Initiative, BPI for short, and this is what people often refer to as pre-K 4. But it is our VPI program. This is one I mentioned earlier, which is a state-funded program from lottery funds. It is state and local match, as Dr. Thornton mentioned. It also pays for salary, benefits for our teachers and paras, field trips, instructional supplies, and professional development. We also provide additional support to this program with our Title I funds as needed. We currently have 101 classes in 34 of our schools and auxiliary sites. Eligibility requirements are quite different for VPI as compared to Title I. Again, in Title I preschool, you simply need to live in a Title I school zone. However, with VPI, we are mandated through the appropriation language to focus on students that are in poverty, trying to find those students because that's who we should be serving. Other criteria for this year can be used by divisions across the Commonwealth, and those local criteria include such things as single parents, English language learners, foster children, families that struggle with substance abuse, domestic violence, parent dropouts. And we do have some of those families that we have included into our 4-year-old program. We've also deemed active military as a local criteria because that is a special population that we have here in our division. It's important to note that this can only be done for this year only. The way the General Assembly has the law that stands right now, we cannot do this next year. Next year, the eligibility requirements will be strictly on income. There will be no local options that we can use, and that will be something that we will use going forward in planning for next year's classes. There is talk that the General Assembly may look at that again, but as it stands now, it will be income-based only. Dr. Thornton also mentioned the VPI initiative, Plus initiative. It is a federal grant. It was awarded to several states throughout the nation, Virginia being one of them. And the point of this grant was to provide expansion to current state-run preschools. Again, it was high quality, and that includes comprehensive services, improving family engagement, as well as providing teacher coaching, so that the teachers are, again, providing that high-quality preschool program. And the goal is that it would trickle down into our existing preschool programs, and we would have high-quality programs across the board. We are to have 10 classes altogether in our Norfolk Public Schools, as well as 1 class in our partner at Norfolk State University. Eligibility requirements for this differ. It is absolutely income-based. There are no other local criteria for these. So those are our 3 programs in a nutshell. Our current status, we have 378 students enrolled in our 3-year-old classes. We have 1,655 in our VPI classes. We currently have 49 students in VPI Plus, and you've seen the big marketing push to try to find those other students for the other 149 slots that exist. We are actively finding them, and that number is probably not even correct at this point. That was most updated prior to today, but we are enrolling daily. So what are we doing in our recruitment efforts? Well, everybody has been quite helpful. We have community partnerships as well as the partnerships here within our family at Norfolk Public Schools. United for Children has been a wonderful community partner. We've also been working with NRHA, the City of Norfolk, various departments in the City of Norfolk. We also have clergy groups we've reached out to, and the Planning Council has been very helpful as well. Here in our family of Norfolk Public Schools, our Office of Early Learning and Title I, our specialists have been working very hard, pounding the pavement, working get the registration process going. We also have our school-level parent liaisons who are combing the neighborhoods as well. Our Department of Communications and Public Relations has been amazing getting us on TV, radio, social media, you name it. And our Student Support Services Department has helped us reach out to other community organizations that they work with very closely. Just to give you some context of our 3-year enrollment trend, Dr. Thornton had mentioned we are on par with where we have been. The yellow line in this graph, this is from September, was provided to us from Assessment Research and Accountability. The yellow line is this year. The blue line is last year. So from the beginning, from the first day of school and going forward, we have been ahead of the game when it comes to pre-K enrollment. As a matter of fact, we're almost caught up to, at the time that this was printed, this was close to 2 years ago's enrollment, and we're probably above that at this point. So our efforts are paying off. Although we do have open spots, it's because we have expanded that preschool opportunity, and we just continue to find those students out there. And at that point, I'm open for questions that you might have.
Questions? Ms. Basine?
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you for your presentation, Ms. Fissner. One of the questions I have is, what specific marketing strategies are our partners using?
We have flyers that have been developed from our public relations folks. They've developed those. We are looking into billboards. We are looking into our bus ads as well. We have actually going out to meetings. One of our specialists was actually at one of the meetings of Tidewater Baptist Ministers, I believe is where he was this week. We also have Student Support Services have reached out to their community members, and we have actual people from their departments that are speaking at domestic violence seminars that they have or meetings, and actually providing the information there as well. So it's sort of a boots on the ground campaign combined with some flyers, radio ads. Dr. Rogers will be on TV next Monday promoting the program. So we have a variety of techniques that we're using.
Dr. Gabriel?
Thank you for the presentation and for clarifying many questions that we have had, especially regarding the wait list that we thought that we had for the past 3 years. Certainly we know that preschool is extremely important, and any teacher will tell you, as we heard earlier in our wonderful discussion with our elementary principal leader, that teachers really enjoy having kids who have already come from a preschool class. My question for you is, I understand that the process used to take place as far as registration at the home school. Last year, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, just want to make sure we have the facts straight, that it was brought to central office. And looking forward to next year, are we looking at changing the way that that was done so we can make it easier for parents to go and register their child at the school that they live closest to? And when that happens, and you don't have to answer this part of the question, but will we need to look at class sizes and things like that, so forth, if we see numbers increasing for that particular school zone? So,
Sure.
that first
So this
question.
year we did bring it centrally. It was actually brought centrally prior year as well, it was done at the high school level. So it's been 2 years now that we've had it more in a central versus at the school level. The reasons for that, again, this was prior to me coming on, but I've asked the questions, why did we choose to do that and not at the school level? There were a variety of reasons. One of the biggest ones is because the requirements kept changing in terms of the income-based versus local criteria and what could be counted as local criteria. That put a lot of burden on the office staff at the individual schools to keep up with that. We would have to keep training them. The SDSs aren't even in July, and that's when we do a lot of enrolling, believe it or not, is in July, which then the office managers would have to step in. We can start those roundups much earlier. We can do it during SOL time off-site when we don't want to put all those students in the class, or all those families coming to the schools. So in a lot of ways, the central office idea, or the central location idea was a good one. We are ahead of our enrollment trends. So in some ways it is working. However, there has been discussion about whether we do move it back to the school level, and I think that is something, I've developed an enrollment committee on our team. They're going to be meeting every 2 weeks from now until February, because that's when we'll start this process all over again. We want to get ahead of the enrollment process using our community partners on the front side versus the back side. But during that process of these committee meetings, we're also going to determine what is best, and we will seek guidance from the cabinet as well about what is the best method for us, back to the school-based, or should we keep it central? So that's an ongoing thing.
Another question that doesn't necessarily deal with this presentation, but it definitely deals with preschool, and that is, for many years, we have discussed the idea, I know that I've brought forth the idea of offering preschool to families who don't necessarily qualify for the programs, and I know that that will come with a certain price tag, and we've had those numbers drafted to us before. We've had our attorneys look into the possibility of what that might look like for students in the classroom to see if it would be legal, and so far they've said that it would be okay. As we look at our enrollment trend, improving with respect to the fact that we're not losing as many students, I would like to see us turn it around so that we are gaining students. And I still firmly believe that if we can grab parents who are looking for choices for their kids to enter school early on, that preschool is the way to get them in. Because as you said before, Norfolk has been doing full-day preschool for over 20 years, and we have lots of wonderful teachers here that can provide quality pre-K. So I am going to put that message out again for us to please look at, with Dr. Thornton's guidance, to look at offering preschool for parents who may not necessarily qualify for these initiatives. Thank you.
Dr. Robinson?
I just want to give you a suggestion on marketing. Sat in on quite a few presentations on family engagement, and the superintendent of schools in Williamsburg, James City County, said the best marketing they ever did to get parent involvement was the marquees on the schools. So it would be smart to put it on every marquee in the city.
We do have it on the schools, but I think tapping into the other marquees that are out there, I think, is a great idea.
Ms. Doyle?
Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very thorough, and I appreciate the transparency of the figures and the acknowledgement around the wait list. Having said that, what I'd like us to do is not look at just enrolling additional pre-K4 this year because we have the capacity, but it's about the quality of the programming as well. And I know we measure it based on PALS, and I think it's important that we always revisit the opportunity to improve the programming at the pre-K 3 and 4. But we want to enroll more. Let's make sure we're offering a quality program. Let's measure it and constantly improve.
Thank you for that.
And I know we've talked about that among ourselves as, a board, is it's not quantity, it's quality. And this principal this evening from the elementaries was saying it's very important for them to have a quality education at that age. In our first grade, they're far well prepared to.
Great, thank you for that.
Reverend Haywood?
Today we had an excellent presentation by the Open Campus, and one of the needs of the Open Campus is for early child education. Do you see any opportunity for Title I funding to be used for an open campus classroom for students who are coming in for recovery have their children in early childhood education?
Yes, we've actually had that discussion in our department, and our understanding is that the need that they have on that level is more on the infant side, from maybe birth to 2 versus our 3 and 4-year-old programs. So one of the things that our enrollment committee is going to look at is the space in that building for a possible birth to 2 initiative, working with our state liaison about how Title I can support that, and see if the principal there is willing to work with us, and I believe that she is, and we can possibly look into that. So that is a discussion that we have had.
To this new technology here. Just a follow-up question. I know that there is space there, but that space would have to be constructed. Can funding from Title I be used for that kind of thing?
Potentially, depending on how much needs to be done. From the initial conversation I had, I don't know that Title I could support the specific things that need to be done to the identified classroom. There could be other spaces that maybe Title I could support, but Title I cannot support any structure, permanent structure, or any changes, but there are other things that it could potentially support. Sure.
Ms. Wagner?
Well, I was just, thank you for your presentation. I noticed, I've listened that you talked with the Norfolk Redevelopment and Housing, and hopefully you've utilized their newsletter? Okay, and, because we recently met with them, and there are some coordinating efforts that can be done in terms of promoting that.
Ms. Tanner has been working with them and helping us out a lot with connecting with them, as well as some of our specialists. So between boots on the ground, going, literally putting flyers indoors, as well as newsletters and community meetings. But we are looking for any other ideas, so thank you.
I have some for you. The wait list. Well, first of all, again, I agree with my colleagues. Appreciate the presentation and the hard work that you've been doing, and the fact that you came in April and picked up and did what you had to do in order to even get us to the point where we are today. But on the wait list issue, what is it that you've learned from the waitlist experience that will allow us moving forward to have an accurate count should we have a waitlist going forward?
Oh, well, in coming in and looking at just the procedures that we do, our registration process in general, we are paper and pencil right now, continuing to do that process. We haven't transferred these documents into an electronic digital form that will help us keep an accurate count ongoing, because the paper and pencil with 2,000 kids is quite daunting, as you can imagine. I'm actually working right now with a teacher here in the county that we might contract with to get us something going on a digital side, so that we can have a better tracking method for these students, understand where these students are coming from, where it seems to be the hot spots for enrollment, and reaching out to us so that we can make better decisions, as well as have an accurate count of actual numbers versus waiting list numbers. I'm also working with our IT department to help us disaggregate the 3-year-olds from the 4-year-olds from other students, so it's very clear who is who and where those numbers fall. So there's some active things behind the scenes going on to help us be able to deliver more accurate numbers.
Can you talk about what our city demographics are telling us in terms of the number of students that we have, or the number of children that we have in the city that would be eligible for the program, are enrolled in Norfolk Public Schools, maybe enrolled in some other type of program, and the percentage that we've always said that we wanted to try to recruit into our early learning programs because the quality of care and instruction that they may be receiving in whatever environment it is would not be at the level and standard that we offer at Norfolk Public Schools.
I don't have all of that information, but I do have a little bit of information. The Planning Council has been great with providing us some data. Based on their 2010 census of our city, we have approximately 3,100 4-year-olds. And they say that that number stays pretty steady from year to year. They do have an approximate 2014 number, but it combines 3 and 4-year-olds together. But roughly, we would have about 3,100 4-year-olds. We have over 1,700 of them here right now, so that we have over half enrolled in our schools. The Planning Council also mentioned that there is I don't know if overabundance is quite the right word, but there are a lot of daycare providers out there. And many of them do have subsidized daycare. And so a lot of families may be going there and may not need to come here. So that could be some of the reason why we're having trouble getting those students. But we know at least the number that we have available to us and how many we have now and where we need to go forward.
Is that 3,100 number those who qualify?
No, that would be total.
Total, okay.
Yeah, they are going to provide us, we're waiting to get some more information. They said they would be able to provide us the number of students in poverty out of that number. We just haven't received that yet.
Then you mentioned in your presentation about the Title I preschool zone. So if I understand correctly, if you happen to be low income and you live in a neighborhood that does not qualify in terms of your home elementary school being a Title I school, you cannot enroll in the program?
Make sure I understand the question. So if you live in a non-title school, but you happen to be in poverty, are you asking would you
Yes.
qualify? You would not qualify. Not
And
for Title I preschool.
And then, I guess lastly, in terms of what we can do to help as far as door-to-door, person-to-person engagement to help with this effort, what can we do? What can the community do to help you?
Definitely get the word out. We've had, our robocalls have helped a lot, but a lot of our families, we're starting to ask them, how did you hear? How did you hear about us? And of course, we hear the flyers and so on, but we also hear just word of mouth. The neighbors talking to neighbors, community members talking to community members. A lady told me today that she got a call from a former employer who said, hey, isn't your child 4 years old? Did you know they have 4-year-old programs? And she called us right away. So I think just actively getting the word out in any venue that you might be at, I think would be quite helpful. Word of mouth is strong.
Any other questions from the board? Ms. Doyle?
So, Ms. Pfister, again, thank you very much. I think Mr. Jordan appropriately characterized the fact that you've been here since April and you've done yeoman's work since April. Word, I would like to thank you for that. And you've made it very clear where we are with our title situation and with our. Said that what I'd like to do is invite you to our future work sessions in the near future to give us an update of where we are on many of our pre-K programs. Because I really
than
think that
happy
it's
to.
important we do it not in March, not in April, when we hear about the pre-K roundups, but let's hear where you are going digitally. If we need to have the work session in December, so we learn a little bit more, that helps with our budgeting, especially when you said some of the criteria of the pre-K is going to change. How will that look like if the GA does not change the language to allow for local criteria? That factors into the capacity and where they're placed, et cetera. So I'd rather have the conversation earlier than later so that we don't find ourselves in this situation next year. Budget in a smarter way.
Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate that.
Sure, you love the invitation.
I do.
We will coordinate that. Dr. Thornton, you have some final comments on this?
Just to thank Ms. Pfister and her team and the newest members of her team and our partners for working with us on this. I was down in Ms. Pfister's office earlier today, and this is a very serious matter, but I was in her office and there was a family registering a 4-year-old young man, and when I saw him, I wanted to hug him. But they were excited that he was coming to the program, and they said he was already reading. So I didn't want to see dollar signs when I saw him, but it's an opportunity for another 4-year-old to come in. So this is very serious, but seeing that young man just brought joy to me.
Can I just ask you one more question? On your 3-year enrollment trend, on the chart where you have the blue, the yellow, and the red line, and the blue line, which is 2014, that looks like it starts at about 1,700. In the red line from 2 years ago, I guess that's what, 2,000? What's the what causes that? Is that just a demographic thing? What is that?
2 years ago, we actually had more classes than we do now, so that probably feeds into that. We had more VPI classes than we did in the last 2 years. We did reduce our VPI classes over the years. So I'm going to guess that plays into it.
Okay, so we had more classes, therefore we had more. This is 3-year-olds. Is that where?
This is 3 and 4 combined.
3 and
But
4.
the 3-year-old stays steady. It's 378 every year because we fill those slots up. So it's somewhat relative since those numbers are steady on 3s. We had the same number of 3-year-old classes. What changed was our 4-year-old class numbers.
All right, well, thank you, and appreciate the report, and I agree with Ms. Doyle. We'll work to do this in a work session, both for your benefit and for our benefit as well, so.
Great. Thank you for your
Thank
time.
Next, we have Dr. Thornton will give a update on our federal state grants and budget. As I mentioned earlier with the pre-K, normally we would have scheduled this report for our November work session. There have been several questions that have come from the board about where we were in terms of our status. Ms. Doyle in particular is always diligent about trying to make sure that we are staying on top of these matters. And so I want to thank the board again and Dr. Thornton because we requested to move this to the business meeting, even though it's not normally in our work session format. So we're going to take some time here and give Dr. Thornton an opportunity to give us a thorough update on our federal state grants and budget, and also allow for questions and comments from the board. So with that, Dr. Thornton.
Thank you, Chairman Jordan. Included in your packet and up on the screen, although the fonts are pretty small for screen display, are the standard budget to actual reports that we've been providing the board over the last several months. The first of which relates to the various federal grant programs that we operate here in Norfolk City Schools. If you go to the very bottom, you'll see that our total federal grants that we were operating with as of September 30 total just under $52 million. And we have, in keeping with the spending guidelines and requirements, we have expended and or encumbered nearly $43 million of that. Back into the detail at the top, of course, the board is always concerned about the status of our Title I funding. I'm pleased to report to the board that on our Title I improving basic programs, and that would be our Title I compensatory grant, federal grants that provide funding based on economic disadvantage, if you will, or free and reduced lunch status. And this provides additional support for classroom instruction, interventionists, and other instructional strategies that take place in our participating schools. So again, I'm pleased to report in any given year, it's not unusual for a school division, particularly of our size, to operate multiple Title I compensatory grants simultaneously. This past year and leading into the ending period of September 30, 2015, the school division was operating 2 grants simultaneously, totaling $25 million, the first of which is the, as you can see on your spreadsheet there, Part A 2013 award, what we refer to locally as the CH-114, and that is the award that will completely expire, or did expire, on September 30, 2015. So the expectation is that our division and other divisions would fully expend their 2013 award, or what we refer to as CH-114, and I'm pleased to report to the board as of September 30, 2015, we have fully expended those funds, and I'm most pleased, if you will, to report that it wasn't the result of a final month spend down. Of course, we had our challenges last year, but the lessons learned around that was to be more proactive in working with our schools and supporting them in their plans. And in the last, we shared with the board a very detailed plan as to how we were going to do that. The principals worked with us, and we were able to achieve that. And as I mentioned earlier, Ms. Fissner came on board in April, and she hit the ground running. We had some in-services for principals as we began to plan how to most effectively utilize those funds. So again, as of September 30, 2015, we have fully exhausted our CH-14 award, 114 award. And then the other award that we're operating under Title I, again simultaneously, is the CH-115 award, which those funds became available in September of 14, and Title I funds generally run for 2 years. So this particular award, CH-115, that began in September 2014, October 1, 2014, it ends September 30, 2016. However, the federal government requires that participating school division expend and or encumber at least 85% of those funds by the end of the first year of the 2-year award period. So again, we don't show the percentage here, but we do have a notation that when you combine of this $12.4 million grant, when you combine the expended funds as of September 30, 2015 of just under $10.5 million with the amounts that have been encumbered, $441,000, we meet and or slightly exceed the 85% spending or encumbrance threshold. And there are plans to expend the remaining funds, the $1.5 million you see there, throughout the remainder of the year leading up to September 30, 2016. And again, we did not have to go to a spin down, if you will. We had original plans. We had to make some slight adjustments to the plans, but the idea was that the adjustments were based on the needs of the schools compared to where they were perhaps a year ago. So this was not achieved as a result of an arbitrary spin down when you go in and you try to spend all the money, and sometimes that can be a challenge to do, and you can end up buying things perhaps that are not as strategic as you need. So we've achieved these two spending targets, 100% on CH-14, 85% on CH-115 without a spin down. You have several other federal awards that are there, including Adult Basic Aid, Title I Part D, Neglected and Delinquent. Kenny Vento, we did leave a little funds on the Project Hope on the table, approximately $5,100. But again, the plans, when you develop a plan, it's based on what you know at that point in time. And when you go a year or 2 years later, things can change. So the unfortunate thing is that sometimes you end up leaving a small amount of funding on the table. It's not because you did not have a specific need, but when you plan for the award and you receive the award, it was based on a certain set of projections. And things can happen. You may not fully staff. The cost that you anticipated may not have been come in at what the actual may have been different than what you anticipated. And then you move on to IDEA, which is basically our special ed federal funding. You can see that for those awards that expired September 30, 2015, we met the spending target. And again, that was done in a manner that would address the needs of the school division. And of course, we have an active 6B or IDEA special ed grant ongoing right now that expires September 30, 2016. And those funds are being expended and utilized according to the plan that the board adopts in the spring of the year. You also have a 619 special ed preschool, and these funds are restricted for those students that are preschool age that have identified special needs. And again, we met the spending target or requirement for the 619-14 that expires September 30, 2015, and we're still working through the plan for the current program grant. Of course, Title II provides funding to support improving teacher quality, and that can include not only professional development, but also there are some class size reduction components. We have, again, this, as the report indicates, for our grant that expired on September 30, 2015, we were able to fully exhaust those funds for the intended purpose. And then we have an active grant that you can see once we had exhausted the expiring grant. We will now focus on the TPT 15 that expires September 30, 2016. One of the things we did this year is we were looking at our schools that we applied for conditional accreditation. We saw an opportunity to use some of these Title II funds you see here, that $2.1 million, to provide some additional classroom teachers in some targeted schools. So that's part of the strategy that we shared with the Office of School Improvement at Virginia Department of Education, that we were going to use some of these Title II funds, likely for the first time, to address some of our most challenged schools as they attempt to achieve full accreditation. So we believe that that was well received. It was a new strategy for utilizing these funds, and it could be one that we'll continue to use going forward. So that was the result of not just developing the Title II plan, if you will, isolation, but in working with the principals of those schools that are in some status of improvement, as well as other members of the team. We decided that we could utilize Title II funds to provide some additional classroom support for some targeted schools. Any questions up to this point?
Dr. Gabriel?
Dr. Thornton, I have several questions. As I was preparing for today's meeting, I sometimes get messages on my phone with regards to NPS and how it is discussed in various media outlets. There was an article that appeared online with regards to our spending, with regards to title grants. I have a couple of questions that I wanted to ask you that will allow you to speak to the facts. Okay? The first question is, at the time that it was made apparent to you and to the board, did we engage the Virginia Department of Education to assist us in the matter of the unspent title funds going back when we originally heard about it?
Yes, ma'am. And what I would share with the board and the citizens that are interested in this is that we receive, as I said earlier, Title I funds for compensatory, that's based on compensatory needs, and that would be our large in excess of $12 million grant funds through Title I. We also receive school improvement funds. And the item that was reported on today was related to school improvement funds that are received as a separate component of Title I. So how this position arrived is that in working with the Department of Ed throughout the spring and the summer to assess where we were, as well as they're working with other school divisions around the Commonwealth on school improvement funds. School improvement funds, there are multiple year awards, and they cut across multiple schools when you go in and out of school improvement status. So we've been working with DOE, Virginia Department of Education, throughout the spring and through the summer. So to answer your question, what DOE discovered statewide was that they were going to pursue an extension of the grant award period specific to these awards, not just for Norfolk Public Schools, but for all the school divisions that were participating, that were having challenges when the monies were dropping at various points during the school year. Then it can create a challenge for school divisions to plan and fully utilize those funds. These funds are primarily for supporting schools that are in improvement through the hiring of Virginia Department of Education sanctioned what's termed as lead turnaround partners or outside consultants, to bring them in and to work with principals and our school division to develop strategies. So what our challenge was, you estimate how much you may need for turnaround lead partners, and another outside support is the Virginia Department of Ed provides contractors, which is separate from turnaround lead partners. And when you estimate how much you're going to need, then in most cases, you're going to receive the majority of that funding. And then the reality is that by the time they get on the ground through the procurement process and the vetting of DOE, you can run out of time, if you will. So DOE understood this statewide. So they solicited and received an extension from the U.S. Department of Education to allow school divisions to continue to utilize these funds throughout the current school year. So it is not a forfeiture of funds. There was an expectation in the late spring and early summer that the Virginia Department of Education was going to pursue and was confident that they would receive the waiver. So again, instead of trying to go out and expend these funds in a very short period of time outside of what the original planning was for that. In other words, we were not going to pursue another spend down. I don't think it's prudent. I know this board doesn't think it's prudent, and the Virginia Department of Education will not support it. And a spend down can be some things that weren't in the original plan, and you would seek to expend the money. So in essence, that's how we have arrived at what we're reporting very clearly to the board, that we have approximately $420,000 remaining that will be available throughout this school year to address the ongoing needs of those schools. And it was anticipated that the Department of Ed would receive the statewide waiver. Therefore, we were not pressed to spend these monies in what was a month of the school year.
So we've been in constant communication with the Virginia Department of Education. We have folks on our staff who are looking at what we are allowed to spend this money on, which is very specific. Every cent will go to the children of Norfolk Public Schools, and no money will need to be returned.
Correct. The majority of the funds will go to support Norfolk Public Schools and the students, but generally the services that these funds will procure will be that of the lead turnaround partner, the Virginia Department of Ed independent contractor who comes in and provides instructional support and strategies and data review and things for the individual schools and the principals. And again, the anticipation is that, as we shared with the board back in June when we received additional funding, that we were going to be challenged, but we would develop plans to expend the funds, and with the state, again, receiving the waiver, then we were not forced to, if you will, for lack of a better term, previously spend the money. So that's where we are today, and we have been working with the Department of Education throughout. Within the first 60 days of assuming this acting role, I was there meeting with them as well, talking about where we were, and again, trying to make sure that we continue to strengthen that relationship. And they have been very supportive of Norfolk Public Schools over the last several months as we continue to do this work. They have their challenges, but we're all working together.
Well, thank you for clarifying those very important facts.
So we skipped down a little bit into the school improvement part. Are there any other questions on the previous portion of the report that Dr. Thornton shared? Okay, Dr. Thornton, if you'll continue, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And there are other federal grants that are there supporting vocational ed, Carl Perkins CTE, right on down through some child nutrition services grants. In the second document will be state-funded grants, or these grants that are provided through state-generated revenues. The state-operated programs, which includes the detention center, as well as Children's Hospital for the Key Daughters. You can see the funding that's available there. We're actually the fiscal agent for the region. So where you see balances, this is the result of those other entities that we support with providing fiscal agency services. These grants, as it relates to student-operated hospitals or student-operated programs, again, we receive the funds based on the actual program needs. So in other words, it's based on the number of kids that come to us in any given year that needs this particular level of service. Then we incur the expense and we go out and we seek reimbursement from the state. These are not funds that were necessarily pre-awarded and we're returning, but it is the balance. The beginning award that's available should the service level be required based on the number of kids that come into the various programs and the type of service that they need through the state-operated hospitals and or the state-operated detention centers.
Additional questions? Ms. Doyle? Okay. Any other questions at this time? I have a couple. Can you speak again to the differentiation? I know you spoke about last year during our work session about the approach this year with trying to provide some differentiation based upon our schools that have challenges. You spoke to that some in Title II. Is there any other ways that you are looking at equity and differentiation as you roll out these programs. And in addition to that, we've talked a lot about the money. Can you also speak to what the quality or what impact we're having as we spend these funds?
In terms of differentiation, one thing that we did very different this year for the newest Title I compensatory award is that we were able to, instead of in the past, what we were doing, we were granting funds to the individual schools. Their per pupil amount was the same. So if you had 1,000 students, your per pupil amount was X. If you had 500 students, your per pupil amount was the same X. And it didn't take into account some of the other poverty indicators or indicators that will allow us to differentiate the per pupil. So what we were able to do, and again, thanks to Ms. Fissner and really peeling back the layers of what we could do, we were able to differentiate the per pupil expenditure for each of the schools based on their, if you will, range of the intensity of poverty. So for our schools that were, let's say they had 95% free and reduced lunch, they would receive a higher per pupil amount than a school that may have 65% free and reduced. So we were able to differentiate that. And the most rewarding aspect of that for this year was that we had an increase in Title I funding, believe it or not. So that allowed us to differentiate without penalizing or reducing what those schools that had a lower per pupil amount this year received in their award last year. Ms. Fissner? So we were able to differentiate, and we didn't have to rob from one school to give to another to differentiate because we received an increase in the total award. And in terms of the instructional impact, I think the question is, again, the funds are primarily, probably about 95% of the funds go directly into personnel for instructional interventionists and reading and that focus on reading and math. And the idea there is to support not only teachers, but to support students. And I may be going way outside of my pay grade here, but to provide those additional interventions outside of basic Tier 1 instruction in the classroom so you can pull out and you can support those kids that identify needs. Is that Dr. Rogers and team?
Ms. Basine?
Dr. Thornton, I wonder if you can explain under technology. Oh, I just lost my, okay. It's, I believe, if I'm reading this correctly, it says that there's 481,543, but then there's a note that says only 78,000 of the remaining is available for MPS for expenditure. Can you explain?
Yeah, that grant has been, was awarded in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And really, that grant was related to some innovative instructional strategies, and I'm, again, probably stepping out a little bit here because it's dated, and it was in partnership with Old Dominion. And over the last 4 years now, we have been attempting to implement the strategies, but quite honestly, we have had a very difficult time implementing the strategies and staffing the positions. Is that the summary of where we are to date with the I3 technology facilitated grants? There's been a lot of turnover.
So, so are those staffing difficulties affecting, how does that affect our programs in our schools?
Where they're not intended to be classroom teachers per se, so they're not factored into our normal allocation of teachers. They were on top of because of the special grant and the special initiative that was associated with that grant. Anyone who's more familiar from an instructional, because this predates my time here, but essentially it was a grant that's been in place for 4 years, and it's expiring.
Okay.
Well, perhaps we can get some additional detail on that so we can provide some. Dr. Robinson, please.
How much of this money goes to family engagement? we're pouring a lot of money, and rightfully so, into challenged schools. But again, the bottom line, it begins and ends with parents. And if we can spend some of that money towards engaging the parents and the families into supporting their children, will go a long way in proper utilization of these funds.
Our Title I funds provide support for full-time parent liaison positions that support Title I schools.
And actually, just on that regard, we've talked about before that, at all our schools, we want to make sure we're following that effort to get as many families engaged positively in the school and positively in the home. And later on, we talk about the Virginia School Board Association Annual Convention coming up. There's an opportunity for us to spend some more time focused on family and community engagement. Ms. Doyle, you had some remarks you wanted to provide?
Yes, I would first of all like to thank Dr. Thornton for his very thorough explanation of our title spending, along with our both Title I and Title II spending, and our school improvement spending. We have been nothing but transparent since this first issue surfaced in the spring. We as a board have diligently been dogging this issue on a monthly basis by asking questions in the most open of fashion. And we get detailed answers in response. An example tonight is this presentation and the spreadsheet that we get very frequently. And I would appreciate that the community should receive an accurate representation of the spend. And I think Dr. Thornton tonight well explained that there is no issue before us other than the spend of the money is coming wisely, and we're working with the Department of Education to do so. We are not spending down, we are not spending frivolously, and we are taking the opportunity to spend the money that's on the table. We have not left any money on the table. We have money ahead of us that we have the opportunity to spend that will benefit the children here in Norfolk Public Schools. And an example of how we are continuing to ask questions, just this very past weekend, and on Monday morning, I visited Norview Middle School. I spoke with the principal there, had a wonderful visit, and he mentioned to me that he's now a Title I school. His plans have been approved in the spring and again in the summer, and he looked forward to October 1, 20 days ago, the money for Title CH-116 would have been released. It was cleared just this past week because you wanted to clear out CH-115 and make sure the spend was being appropriate and there was no commingling of years. And I repeatedly asked Dr. Thornton several questions this week. One was, how quickly would the principals be communicated that the money was freed up to spend? How would they be communicated? And if it involved purchases such as technology, how quickly would those purchases be made so they could be in receipt of the technology so they could actually put them to use for the plan that was approved? And so I got excellent answers back. And in fact, the technology, according to procurement, according to Dr. Thornton, should only be 2 to 3 weeks if a principal, in fact, wanted to order laptops or iPads that they could use for a reading lab. So this is just a small example that as a board, we are very diligently looking into the title spending, and we ask for these reports, and we appreciate the frankness, and we welcome the scrutiny from the community as well. But we also want to be sure that the community is receiving the accurate information like Dr. Thornton received tonight. So I just wanted to thank the administration. Again, Jamie Fissner, you've done yeoman's work. Keep it up. We need it. And thank you very much.
And I know that Dr. Thornton has some final comments he wants to give, and I also want to make sure that one of the things that we did last year as part of the plan, we had this discussion during our work session. And so as the administration deems and as the board deems is appropriate, we can make sure that we have that on the work session as needed so that we can stay on top of this and make sure that, we are informing the public. I think it's fair to say that we all recognize we've had a problem. We've accepted the fact that we have the problem. We are going to continue to do the things that are necessary to rectify that, and moving forward, make sure that we are ahead of the game so we can make sure at the end of the day that the students and the staff are receiving what they need. And so if there are any other suggestions from the administration or the board that we can do to make sure that we are sharing this information away, because it is important and we do know that it gathers attention, then I just want to make it clear that I'm open to all those suggestions that we can do as a board to be even more supportive. With that, Dr. Thornton, you have some final comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and school board members. I too welcome questions, the scrutiny around it, because it is taxpayers' funds. We have many needs in our school division. So I welcome and engage around the questions, the tough questions around what are we doing. But I would also say that I've tried to be very careful and clear with the board as we go through the budget process around the need for additional resources. We know that we have a challenged environment, and it would appear that the more resources are critical, and they are. But I think it's just as critical that when additional resources become available, that we have a very strategic approach to utilizing them. I'm not ashamed to say that. I think that, in the long run, strengthens credibility. We are a community with significant needs, as attested to by our free and reduced lunch, so a tremendous amount of funds come available to us, and we are encouraged to take advantage of those funds. But at the same time, we have to make sure that when we do, that we have plans to do that. And this continues to be a work in progress. It's never going to be an excuse. But the reality is that when we accept, then we have to accept based on a planned use. And we're going to do everything we can to ensure that we maintain the integrity of the process. But I'm not going to endorse, nor am I going to condone spend downs to meet a target. That does not mean that I don't appreciate the needs of our students, of our teachers, and our staff. I do. But at the same time, we've got to be strategic in the initial acceptance and planning, and then the spending will take care of itself. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you again for that robust discussion. Appreciate us doing that at the business meeting ahead of the work session. And we will continue to stay on top of this and all many other issues that we know we have to face moving forward.